Henry Ford was an American industrialist and business magnate. As the founder of the Ford Motor Company, he is credited as a pioneer in making automobiles affordable for middle-class Americans through the system that came to be known as Fordism. Here is a detailed life history of him. Now let's start. Henry Ford was born on July 30, 1863, in Greenfield Township, Michigan, which is now part of Dearborn. He was the eldest of 6 children born to William Ford and Mary Littagott Ford, both of whom were immigrants. His father, William Ford, was an Irish immigrant who had settled in Michigan after fleeing the Irish potato famine, while his mother, Mary, was born in Michigan to Belgian parents. This immigrant background played a subtle role in shaping Ford's sense of determination and resilience, qualities that would define his future career. Growing up, Ford showed an early interest in mechanics, often dismantling and reassembling household items to understand their functions. He especially enjoyed working with watches, often taking them apart and putting them back together to learn how they operated. By the time he was 12, Ford was regarded as a talented watch repairer among neighbors, fixing watches for family and friends. This early aptitude for mechanical work would fuel his career in engineering and manufacturing. A young man's journey into Detroit. Although Ford's father envisioned him taking over the family farm, Henry had no desire to become a farmer. Instead, he was drawn to machines, particularly after he saw a self-propelled steam engine for the first time at the age of 13. This experience marked the beginning of Ford's fascination with engines and transportation. In 1879, at the age of 16, Ford left his family's farm to work as an apprentice machinist in Detroit. He began at James F. Flour and Bros and later at the Detroit Dry Dock Company, where he learned the basics of operating and building machines. This apprenticeship was crucial to Ford's understanding of how engines and machines worked, as he gained experience that would later help him build his own automobiles. During these years in Detroit, Ford was exposed to the rapidly evolving industrial environment of the city, which was becoming a center of innovation and manufacturing. His time in the city allowed him to observe the ways in which technology was transforming production and fueled his ambition to create something impactful. Returned to the farm and marriage. After 3 years in Detroit, Ford returned to the family farm, but he didn't abandon his interest in machines. He continued working on engines and machinery, constructing a small workshop on the property where he could experiment. In 1888, he married Clara Ayla Bryant, a local woman who would remain his lifelong companion and supporter. They had one son, Edsel Ford, born in 1893. Although they lived a relatively modest life in the early years of their marriage, Ford's aspirations for engineering innovation were unwavering. Around this time, Ford took on a position as a part-time agricultural mechanic and eventually became the chief engineer for the Edison Illuminating Company's Detroit division. This role provided Ford with a steady income while allowing him to work on his experiments with gasoline engines. The quadricycle, Ford's first automobile. By 1893, Henry Ford had built his first gasoline-powered internal combustion engine in his kitchen, which marked the beginning of his work in automobile design. This led to his first, horseless carriage, called the quadricycle, which he completed in 1896. The quadricycle had a 2-cylinder engine and could travel at about 20 miles per hour. Although it was primitive by today's standards, it represented a significant breakthrough for Ford and set him on a path toward automobile innovation. The creation of the quadricycle was only a first step, as Ford continued refining his designs and searching for investors to fund a larger-scale production. His work on the quadricycle also caught the attention of Thomas Edison, who encouraged Ford to pursue his dream of creating an affordable automobile. Ford's interactions with Edison served as inspiration, and he would later build a lifelong friendship with the famous inventor. Early business ventures and struggles. By 1899, Ford had gathered enough support to launch his first company, the Detroit Automobile Company. However, the business was not successful. Ford's initial vehicles were expensive, and the company struggled to establish efficient production methods. Just a year later, the Detroit Automobile Company was dissolved. Despite this setback, Ford remained determined. He spent the next few years honing his skills, refining his engine designs, and learning from his mistakes. In 1901, he managed to attract the interest of wealthy investors by winning a race with a car he had built himself. This victory solidified his reputation as a capable engineer, and in 1903, Ford and several investors founded the Ford Motor Company. The birth of the Model T. The Ford Motor Company was established with the goal of creating affordable and reliable vehicles for the masses, a vision that set Ford apart from other automakers at the time. In 1908, Ford launched the Model T, a simple, durable, and inexpensive automobile that revolutionized the automotive industry. The Model T's affordability was revolutionary, and it quickly gained popularity among the middle class. Ford's vision was to create a car that was not only affordable, but also easy to maintain and operate, making it accessible to as many people as possible. To achieve this, he focused on refining the production process to lower costs. The Model T was originally priced at $850, but by the end of its production in 1927, the price had dropped to less than $300 due to Ford's cost-cutting measures. The assembly line revolution in 1913, Ford implemented the moving assembly line at his Highland Park plant. Inspired by the efficiency of a Chicago meat packing plant, he introduced a conveyor belt system that moved parts to workers, allowing each employee to specialize in a specific task. This innovation allowed Ford to produce vehicles much faster and at a significantly lower cost. The assembly line reduced the time required to assemble a Model T from 12 hours to just 93 minutes, which transformed the manufacturing industry and became a model for mass production. Ford's approach inspired other industries to adopt similar methods, paving the way for modern manufacturing and drastically changing the nature of factory work. The $5 workday in 1914, Ford implemented the groundbreaking $5 workday, more than doubling his workers' wages from the industry standard. This decision was met with shock and criticism from other business leaders, but Ford had his reasons. He believed that higher wages would improve productivity, reduce turnover, and foster loyalty among his workers. Furthermore, by paying his workers enough to afford the cars they produced, Ford created a new consumer base for his vehicles, effectively fueling his own sales. The $5 workday had far-reaching social effects, establishing Ford as a progressive employer and improving the quality of life for thousands of workers. It also helped to create the concept of the middle class in America, as workers with stable incomes could afford to buy homes, cars, and other consumer goods. Labor relations and strict management. Although Ford was seen as a progressive employer, he also had a reputation for strict control over his employees. He established a sociological department that monitored workers' lives outside of the factory, enforcing moral standards and requiring adherence to a strict code of conduct. Ford was known for his views on personal responsibility, sobriety, and conservative living, and he expected his employees to conform to these ideals. This level of intrusion was controversial, and while it reduced issues like absenteeism and turnover, it also created resentment among some employees. Ford's stance on labor unions was similarly contentious. He was vehemently anti-union, believing that unions interfered with productivity and promoted laziness. This stance eventually led to violent clashes, including the famous Battle of the Overpass in 1937, where union organizers and Ford's private security force engaged in a violent confrontation. Expansion and global influence. With the success of the Model T, Ford expanded his business internationally, establishing Ford plants in Canada, England, Germany, and other countries. Ford's international operations allowed him to reach new markets, and he became one of the first American industrialists to recognize the potential of global business. Ford's reputation as an industrial innovator also made him a popular figure in other countries. In the Soviet Union, for example, The government used Ford's methods as a model for their own industrialization programs. Ford's influence extended beyond the automotive industry, as he became a symbol of American industry and innovation worldwide. Controversial views and the Dearborn Independent. While Ford was a celebrated industrialist, he also held controversial views that damaged his legacy. He was an outspoken anti-Semite and published a series of anti-Semitic articles in his newspaper, the Dearborn Independent. These articles, collectively published as the International Jew, promoted harmful stereotypes and conspiracy theories about Jewish people. This dark aspect of Ford's life led to significant criticism, and he was eventually pressured to close the newspaper and issue an apology. Ford during World War II. During World War II, Ford Motor Company shifted its focus to support the war effort, producing military vehicles, airplanes, and other equipment for the Allied forces. The Willow Run plant, built specifically for producing B-24 bombers, became one of the largest aircraft manufacturing facilities in the world. Ford's contributions to the war effort were crucial, and his company played a significant role in the production of military equipment. Decline, legacy, and death. In the final years of his life, Henry Ford's health continued to deteriorate, marked by episodes of poor memory and periods of confusion. After suffering from multiple strokes, tragically, Edsel Ford died of stomach cancer in 1943, a devastating loss for the company and the family. Edsel's death deeply affected Henry, who attempted to return to an active role in the company but struggled due to his frailty and outdated views on manufacturing and management. While Edsel had introduced progressive ideas and a more modern approach, Henry Ford's return to leadership was largely seen as a regression for the company. His vision, once revolutionary, was becoming less compatible with the rapidly evolving post-war economy, and Ford Motor Company's position in the industry weakened. Legacy and impact on American industry. Henry Ford's legacy is monumental, particularly in the way he reshaped industrial production. The moving assembly line, which he introduced in 1913, remains one of the most significant innovations in manufacturing history. By optimizing the assembly process, Ford reduced the time it took to build a car from 12 hours to just 93 minutes, allowing Ford Motor Company to increase production volume while lowering costs. This approach became the model for mass production and set a new standard for efficiency across industries globally. Today, his method is seen as the foundation for modern manufacturing and has been adapted by industries as diverse as electronics, food production, and consumer goods. Ford's innovations extended beyond technology. His introduction of the $5 workday in 1914, which was more than double the prevailing wage at the time, transformed labor standards and laid the groundwork for the modern American middle class. By paying his workers enough to afford the very products they manufactured, Ford effectively turned his employees into consumers, thereby creating a cycle of demand that fueled economic growth. This approach not only improved productivity and reduced turnover but also had a profound impact on American labor practices and consumer culture. Ford's decision demonstrated the power of well-paid workers to drive a thriving economy, and his ideas influenced labor policies and business practices worldwide. Ford's relationship with labor was another complex issue. While he pioneered higher wages for his workers, his views on unions were harsh and inflexible. Ford was vehemently opposed to labor unions, seeing them as disruptive to productivity. His anti-union stance led to tensions with workers and clashes with union organizers, most notably the violent Battle of the Overpass in 1937, when Ford's security forces attacked United Auto Workers organizers. This incident highlighted Ford's belief in strict control over his workforce and his unwillingness to accept organized labor, which was increasingly gaining traction across American industries. Henry Ford's place in history. Henry Ford's legacy is a blend of remarkable achievements and serious controversies. His life is a testament to the power of innovation and entrepreneurship, Yet it also highlights the complexities and ethical responsibilities of influential figures. Ford's industrial innovations created a new era of productivity and accessibility, fundamentally reshaping American society and enabling the growth of a vibrant consumer economy. Now you know who was he. If you truly respect and like him, just hit the like button, and also if you love this type of real history, just click the subscribe button. Now let's take a leave and again meet at another interesting story of Francis Bacon, father of empiricism. Up to that time, goodbye, have a nice day, my friend.